Good day, peoples. Back at it. Big Said, industry co-sign. Have a special guest today. Um, I'm going to, y'all know how I don't like doing intros, but I'm going to try to do this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to let her introduce himself. I'm being lazy right now.
All
I
right,
thought
no
about
problem, man.
it.
My name is Lamar Ingram. I am the author of The G Code Behind the Bars, a hip hop connoisseur's guide through corporate America. And it is my pleasure to be here today, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to us, me specifically, but us to the audience. Um, Now I know that you know, the book, of course, the
Hmm.
Deco behind the bars. What was the reason? Actually, you know what? Let's give a little background so that way at least people know that you're not somebody trying to capitalize off hip hop and that you
Fair
actually.
enough.
So give a little
Fair enough.
background where you're from and what led you to actually, I guess, in the midst of describing why you want to do the book. I guess your hip
Mhm.
hop background.
Okay, so background. Let's start at the beginning. I was born in Queens, New York.
Okay.
Trinidadian parents. Well, actually, Trinidadian mom, Jamaican dad. But I claim the Trinidadian side because I actually went from Queens to Trinidad as a baby. Spent a couple years in Trinidad before I came back up. Been immersed in hip hop from day one. Actually, undergrad was at the Savannah College of Art Design. Started as an architecture major. Ended up being video and film, focus on sound design, big concentration on hip hop. Um, did a little freelance thing at MTV for a little while. My hip hop background, I mean, besides just being a ultimate fan and being highly engaged, I would say I'm a fan of all types of hip hop, but New York steeped. Let's keep it fair.
Of course.
Um, and then of course after that, you after a while you grow up. Eventually you get married, you do things like that. So you got to be responsible. I ended up in corporate America. Uh, uh, Proficient in sales, so I started my career in the sales division, rose up through the ranks, and now I'm a director of an outbound sales team. But basically, the premise of the book is just how hip hop has influenced my career path, and what it has done for me as an individual.
Now, as you stated, you stated the reason. Like, what is the actual like when you were thinking of doing the book, or what led you to actually saying to yourself, you know what, I can make this a book. Like, what led you to that, and what process actually
Right.
made you actually do it?
So here's the thing. I think the love and the passion that I had for hip hop, everybody wanted to be a rapper at one point, right? Everybody wanted to be an MC. I was good at it. I was very good at it, actually. And so I developed a pen. I was very good at writing. My mom was an author. And as you get older, you cross your 30s, 35, 36, you start to realize, all right, that rap thing's not going to work out, right? But it doesn't mean you don't love the written word. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you don't love creativity, expressing yourself. So I got into writing these little articles on LinkedIn. And what I would write was basically how hip hop impacted my thought process, how it impacted my approach to work. And I think it was 2019, October, if I'm not mistaken. I wrote this article because I looked on LinkedIn. I was like, I bet you nobody never wrote a 16 on LinkedIn before, as professionally. So I
Yeah.
thought about Biggie's 10 crack commandments, and I made these like 10 corporate commandments. And I wrote that, and I never expanded on it. And as time went by, I realized like I really live by what I wrote. It's not just something that I wrote for fun. This is a formula that I follow, and I wanted to expound on it. And so as time went by, it turned into a book, man. It turned into not just a philosophy, but also an instructional manual. Because I look at, I have friends in all walks of life, and they look at it like, oh, you're so corporate, you're so this, and you're so that. And I'm like, dude, at the end of the day, you're exactly like me. You just apply the skill differently. And
Yeah.
if you knew how good you could be in corporate America with the skills you apply in entrepreneurial efforts, you'd realize. And when you don't have mentors, sometimes when things then the dots don't get connected for you,
Yeah.
you don't know how to bring it all together. So I just wanted to kind of write this instructional manual on how to connect the dots to maximize the situation. Not just, I want to share. I want to share what I knew, what I learned with everyone else. And I thought this was the best way to do it.
Okay, and I know that recently because the book came out this year, and
Hmm.
tell us where the book debuted and how were people's reaction when they actually got to know about the book?
So the book actually was available on my personal website as early as I think January, but it wasn't available on like Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and all that until August 28th. Because writing a book is one thing, getting it published is a whole different animal.
And let me
So
go through for 1 second. And it
mhm.
is self-published.
It is published, yeah, self-published,
Right.
yeah, with
Okay.
Book Baby. They allowed me to really illustrate and present the book the way I wanted to. I looked into like going through a publisher, and I realized it's just like music. There's no difference. You don't need to get signed by a label. If I could do everything myself, of course the profit margin is higher, and the distribution is better. So I was able to distribute the book initially through my personal website, gcbtb.com. And that was kind of like friends and family, a soft opening to see how it was going to be received.
Yeah.
A lot of people use that site now. Like if they want a signed copy, they'll hit me on that website with their information. And then once it was available in August, I think August 28th, 29th, if I'm not mistaken, it kind of took on a life of its own. And copies been flying off the shelves since then.
Cool. That's a good thing. It's a good
Very
thing.
good thing. Very good thing.
So how do you apply some of the hip hop code that you've learned
Hmm.
over the years to not only to the book, but to your role in corporate America? In fact, your role in life.
My role in life. So here's the thing: when you learn things, sometimes you don't recognize it in the moment. You recognize it in hindsight, right? 2020 looking backwards. One of the things I realized too is coming up in the early 90s, if you wanted to be an aspiring MC, you had to be able to freestyle. You had to be able to battle rap, right? It does something to the synapses in your brain, something they don't teach in schools, right? A lot of people, they do what's that thing called, Toastmasters and all that other stuff
Yeah,
to get their public speaking and their elocution up,
yeah,
but that pales in comparison to battling every day in a lunchroom.
that's
It's
true.
a big difference. And I realized that the impact of being in a unique situation, creating and constructing a presentation, you can call it a verse, a 16, right, in real time with information, connecting the dots very quickly and doing it in an entertaining way. It catapulted me to the front of the line. When I graduated from college with my undergrad and then finished, my MBA, and I'm doing presentations, and it's like, how does this come so easy for you? Oh my God, you're such a great public speaker. And I'm like, dude, it's just a rap battle. It's just a rap battle with numbers, right? I got to be able to fire my shots, take your shots, recoup, come back, and kill the game. And that's basically the biggest benefit across the board is just training your mind to work that way, to absorb information, process quickly, synthesize it, and respond in an organized, controlled fashion. That's one of the biggest lessons.
That's a great lesson as well. And I know you stated that it started off as more so thoughts based on the ten crack commandments, as you stated.
Hmm.
Um, how long did it take you to actually write the actual book?
So here's the thing. I wrote the initial article in 2019. I didn't start writing the book until like it was Thanksgiving. My mom had recently passed away. My mom was an author, and I
Mhm.
just wanted to like connect with her. So I just started writing down my thoughts. And I always did this thing where I would scribble, you jot things down in your phone. And I realized that the framework for the book was already done. It was just a matter of actually applying it, organizing it, and writing out the thoughts completely. And so I don't want to lie to you. If it took 4 days, that was long. Yeah,
Wow,
like I didn't sleep for like 3 days. It just was pouring out, bro, and I just got it all down, and I was very happy about that.
that's good.
Yeah.
I know I told you before we started filming that because I want to explain to people because I usually have different sections for my podcast series, and this is
Hmm.
the first one, and I named it Beyond 50 because as we
Hmm.
stated before, the anniversary of the anniversary of hip hop being its 50th year.
Hmm.
I haven't really celebrated it in the way that most people have, only because I've been involved with hip hop ever since I knew what hip hop was. I'm going to be involved with hip hop until I die. So I wanted to basically name it Beyond 50 because just like
Right.
you, we're going to be here beyond the 50th
Right before the
anniversary.
50-year mark, exactly. Yet the 50 celebration sometimes does feel like terminal, and
Yeah,
it's like, nah, this is just the beginning. So I get
yeah,
that completely. For me, I think it's so important that we realize the contributions and recognize the contributions of hip hop and how it's applied across the board. And it's funny, you hear Jay Z say things like, "Oh, I'm a businessman."
Yeah.
It's like people don't realize like all those double and triple entendres,
Yeah.
they actually hold weight and they're applicable, right? And I think that's the impetus for the book. It's like it's in the bars, it's in the rhymes. You just have to listen, and very few people listen. And if they don't listen, who's gonna tell them, right? Because unlike other genres of music, sometimes we're quick to say like, "Oh, this is old school. Oh, this is 90s. Oh, this is not relevant." They don't do that to the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones are as relevant today as they were the first week that the first album dropped, right? So it's important that, as we become, I gotta say it, older, we gotta be, the safeguards, the guardians of the oral tradition of lyricism, understanding that the culture is gonna go through a metamorphosis, right? I think like right now, to me, we're like in an '80s type vibe, where everything is like poppy and everything is surface level, quarter inch deep, and who could floss the most. But we had that in the early 2000s. Then it got lyrical again. So
Yeah.
it's gonna go have the ebb and the flow. I think my job is just to try and preserve the quality and the content of the lyricism, and show not just younger generations, just anybody who can't connect the dots. Like, listen, man, there's instruction manuals all through this music on how to be successful. 10 crack commandments is easy, but come on, nobody wants to be a drug dealer. Let's be serious. All right. Let's talk about how we could take that methodology and apply it to legal money and become prosperous and beneficial and contribute to society on a whole, you know?
Yeah. I want to take it back to, I know that if I'm correct, you've utilized some of the lyricism from past MCs, and
Hmm.
I've always told people that hip hop artists from, like, I don't know how old you are either, so I'm gonna say hip hop artists from my era have
Hmm.
always prophesized without realizing. They may have realized it, and I think some of them didn't really realize. But there's been a lot of prophecies within hip hop lyrics.
Hmm.
How do you utilize the hip hop lyrics that you've heard over the years, or even in the earlier years, to, I guess, live how you live, whether it's work,
Fair.
it's fun, whether it's whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Fair question. So I would say there's two things. There's lessons in everything. Lesson number one is if it's positive, that's a lesson of what to do. And if it's negative, it's a lesson of what not to do. It's that simple. You can learn from both sides. So HNIC, Prodigy album, there's a line where he's like temperamental, I snap quick, very touchy. My attitude is all in real, you know what I mean? And it's like growing up as a kid, I admired Prodigy for saying that because I was like, that is my attitude. I am temperamental. So what? You wore it as a badge of honor. But
Mhm.
as you grow up and you become an adult, you realize controlling your emotions is actually very important to success. So it went from something I strive to be like, or I took pride in being as a 17, 18, 19-year old. But by the time I was 25, I was like, no, I got to do the opposite of that line. I need to stay calm. Even if I'm losing it inside my head, I can't let people know. I have to control my emotion because it's going to have impact. And one of the chapters in the book is titled, You Shouldn't Have to Say Sorry. And when a lot of people saw that, they thought it meant you shouldn't apologize. And I'm like, no, you should play the game in a way that you never have to apologize because you made the right choice initially. Stay calm.
That makes sense.
So there's applications across the board, you know.
Cool. Since we're on the topic of hip hop, how do you feel that the culture of hip hop, how it was
Mhm.
before, how it is now, and how it's going to be? What are your thought process as far as just the whole culture of hip hop?
So, I mean, it started out as a hobby, right? Started out as a hobby. I think in if you go as early as the crack era, you got stuff like self destruction and people trying to make positive music, and then of course it becomes popularized. And when something becomes popularized, you do whatever's popular, literally making it pop. So it has a commercial overtone, and then now it's like the mainstream type of music, so you get a lot of mainstream influence and a lot of mainstream process. And what I mean by that is like in the golden era, you know, it was frowned upon to sound like another person or to be like another person. And now Well, it's changing up a little bit now, but a couple years back when Migos had the game on the chokehold, it's
Yeah,
like you couldn't tell if it was Migos or like 17 different other artists because everybody kind of emulated. But that's part of growing up, right? That's part of growing up. As an art form, it's going to have its ebbs, it's going to have its flows. There's going to be times when you're just like everybody else, and there's going to be a time when you strive to be unique. And then there's also going to be a retrospective, so to speak, where people look back and you find those obscure pockets of artists that you didn't pay attention to in this era because you was caught up on what was on the radio, and then you go back and you're like, oh no, this person's dope. Like I missed this. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, unfortunately after Nipsey Hussle died, a lot of people really focused on Victory Lap as an album. But once you get on Victory Lap and you start to go back within his catalog, you realize how dope he was, and his messages of vertical integration and owning all aspects of the business. And I mean, he really laid out how to be successful as a business person. So,
yeah,
it's a journey of self-discovery for everybody at your own pace. And the creativity happens when it happens. And everybody will have their favorite era, but at the end of the day, as an art form, pushing forward. So I'm pleased with the progress. I can't complain.
yeah. I think hip hop is in good hands right now. This,
Absolutely.
and what I always tell people, because I'm a little bit older. I'm 55, so I came up like when hip hop. Okay, I put it to you in perspective. I actually went
Mm,
to high school with Slick Rick and Dana Dane.
got you.
So, so my mindset was the same mindset as theirs was, except I wasn't lyrical or trying to rap. But I'm talking about the mindset and how, the concept and how what people did to rap, draw, whatever. But
Hmm.
I do realize that over the years, just like anything else in life, things change. I know I hate when I hear people say, "Oh, that's not hip hop. That's not hip hop," and I'm like, you can't really say that because that's their hip hop. Whatever
Right.
they're going through, whatever they
Right.
deem hip hop, might not be the same as that we came up. We came up, it wasn't as commercial as it is
Correct.
now. So of course, we had to like basically search for hip hop, and like it's right there in front of them.
Of course.
Um,
Of course.
I kind of veered up to what I was going to ask, and I just remembered. So excuse me for
Hmm.
that.
No
But
problem.
I know that you stated that you had to grow up. You went to corporate America, but I also
Hmm.
realized that when you went to school for sound design.
Yeah.
What prompted you to go in that direction?
So
Um,
it actually started out as architecture.
you
I
did say
wanted to
that.
be an architect. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to be an architect. I think after my first architecture class, I realized that wasn't for me. I went into architecture thinking I'm going to make the next Empire State Building, and I realized most architects just build McDonald's, and that wasn't going to work for me. I was looking to do something with a little more expression.
Yeah.
But one
Yeah.
of my favorite architects, Frank Lloyd Wright, I found a quote from him, and he said something along the lines of, "If you can design a building, then you can conduct an orchestra." And I think I was just in the right space at the right time when I heard that, and I'm like, you know what, dude, got a point. I like music. I like rap. I like lyricism, reggae, hip hop, calypso, you name it. Any type of lyricism, I'm into it. I'm going to transfer my energy. And instead of trying to fit into what I think would be a respectable career, I'm just going to follow my passion. And that's how I got into sound design, video, and film. And, that was the transition point for me. So that's how I ended up in sound design, because sound is such a, how could I say it? It's such a open landscape for creativity. You can
Yeah.
do so much with sound that it just allowed me to express myself. And it was done through a hip hop lens initially, but then once you got into video and film, you're talking sound design, foley, sound creation, sound effects. It was just such a broad spectrum. It really just opened up the world of the audio experience for me, which
Now,
had a significant impact on how I even formatted the book. To be honest with you.
excuse my ignorance, but what is the meaning of sound design? Because on the surface, sound design could be a producer, it could be a
Yeah, it
musician.
can.
But
It
that's
is
what
designing.
I'm asking
Yes.
for
So
specific.
it is the baseline for everything. In the realm of video and film, here's what sound design is. Quick science lesson. In space, there's no air molecules. Because there's no air molecules, there's no sound. But when you watch Star Wars and a ship flies by, you hear a sound, right? That's sound design. It's a sound that doesn't exist, and somebody had to create it.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
they have to create it in a way. It's funny. It's easier to trick your eyes than it is to trick your ears. You can always tell the truth when you hear it. So to be a sound designer, you have to be brilliant with how you manipulate sound for somebody to believe what they're actually hearing. Right? Think of like Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, when that big boulder's rolling down. They don't have time to hook a mic up and let the boulder roll down. Somebody did that with like a coffee cup, some styrofoam, and like a car. They put sounds together and they constructed that sound. They broke it down and they made it happen. A lightsaber. A lightsaber doesn't really exist. So how do we know it goes zzz, zzz, zzz? You know what I mean? Somebody had to make that up. So that's what sound design is. And of course now it plays into music. It plays into everything.
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
I just it's so funny with the lightsaber, but
Yeah.
you grew up you grew up in Queens.
So see, that's a misconception. I was
Okay.
born in
Oh boy,
Queens.
yeah, you did say you were born in
I was
Queens.
born in Queens, but I grew up everywhere. I got shipped off to Trinidad as a youngster. I was there till I was 11. I spent all my summers in Queens. I don't know if you're Caribbean, but as a Caribbean kid, that's a normal thing. You're born in New York and they send you back home and back and forth all through your adolescence. Ended up in Miami. Well, I should say Miramar to be precise. In Miramar, which is a big transplant area for a lot of New York kids. So in the 90s, I was in Miramar. Um, I hopped around from high school to high school for a little while. Ended up in college in Savannah, Georgia. Stayed there for a good minute, 7 years. I did the long program. Um, and then back to New York, back to Miami, back to New York, back to Miami a couple times. And as an adult, by 25, I moved down here full time, down here being Miami, and ended up in corporate America. So
Okay,
it's just a journey. Like I could never say I grew up in Queens. Spent
gotcha.
a lot of summers in Queens. I was born in Queens, but I grew up all over, man.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
You I know you have some things coming up. As far as like talking about the books and things of that nature.
Hmm.
Do you have plans specifically to tour? I know you may tour for work or for what you do, but I mean
Right.
specifically for your
The
book,
book.
based on your book.
So I've been doing a series of podcasts, series of interviews. I just did something with WSFL, local news station. Did an interview with NBC6. I think I got a CBS thing coming. So I've done a couple of events on the 18th of this month, actually, with the YMCA in Fort Lauderdale. I'm doing a book conversation. So there's going to be it's an event. I wouldn't call it a tour. I wouldn't call it a tour. Like I said, this is the first book I ever wrote, and I kind of got my pinky toe in the water.
Yeah.
So I'm taking the opportunities where they come in, and if the speaking engagements follow, I've done a speaking engagement or two already in regard to the book. This being the 50-year mark, there's been a lot of opportunities where I've had the chance to speak. Is That's just serendipity, though. It wasn't planned that way.
Yeah.
So all in all, I've been taking my shots where I could get my shots, all while doing my day job as well. So it's not as easy.
Well, I've already given my viewpoint on the Hip Hop 50. What is your thought as far as one, the
Hmm.
celebration itself,
Hmm.
two, how people are receiving or not receiving it, and three, what do you anticipate happening after Hip Hop 50?
So I love the fact that it's recognized, right? People forget in the beginning, hip hop was viewed as a fad, and everybody thought it wouldn't last a test of time. So very few things hit the 50-year mark. So it's cool. It's cool that it hit the 50-year mark. Now, that doesn't mean that's the end. What that means is if we're lucky, it'll be a time for introspection, it'll be a time for exploration. You'll see a recognition kind of given to, like people talk about giving people their roses. Maybe people take a step back, understand who's Marley Marl, understand who's Dana Dane, understand the importance of Method Man and what made Wu Tang so dope, understand that the vanguard participants, not just the ones that got famous, but the
Exactly.
ones who put in work and aren't known. This would be, I mean, like, I'm excited when I hear that Big Daddy Kane is still touring, when Wu Tang is having concerts still. These are all things that gives a generation that, for all intents and purposes, have no idea what that's about. They get a chance to explore and rediscover. And then, of course, with that exploration, there comes a new appreciation. So it branches off into new artists or unknown artists that does do a style from an earlier era. For people like 38 Special, Griselda, those guys now they start to get props because people are like, oh, that's what makes this dope. This connects to this. Because we won't always have Jay-Z and Nas to bridge that gap, right? We're gonna have to create some new bridges. And I think, it gives a chance to recognize that yeah, there was a time when it was about dancing and snap your fingers, and then there was a time where it was about being soulful. There was a time when it was about being militant. But people are realizing there's so many aspects to hip hop. It ain't just Nicki Minaj and Drake. There's a lot to it. It's a full culture, and when something's a full culture, you could explore it from a 360 perspective. So I think that's the benefit of the 50-year celebration. It gives people a chance to understand the breadth and the scope. As far as the future, I'm not worried about the future, man. I think the future is bright. I think there's always going to be that intergenerational bickering. Like you young boys don't know nothing about rap. Let me play some real rap for you. But when we were coming up, they would say, "Look, you young boys don't know nothing about music." So it's okay. It's okay. I embrace that. And you need your futures, just like you need your outcasts, just like you need your different people, your Bun B's, just like you needed all these other people that pushed and pulled the art form in different ways. I think we're going through a time of expansion and growth. So there's not going to be a certainty. I love the fact that there's no headquarters anymore. Meaning back in the day it was like Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens. This is the headquarters. You know what I mean? Then there was the Snoop Dogg era. It's like this is the headquarters. Now it's like, listen, it could be a 19-year-old kid in Wyoming right now killing it. And if he's good enough, you're gonna find out about him. So I like that.
It's so funny because I was literally just about to ask you, like, do we still have regional hip hop? And you basically just,
Nah,
answered the
I don't.
question.
I don't think so. I
You
don't think so. I think people are influenced by wherever they are,
know?
and it permeates their delivery and their music. Like Drake is an example of this, right? You could tell when Drake been in London for a little while. You could tell when he stopped in Jamaica for a little while. You could tell like New York rappers now do drill just as good as Chicago rappers. It's like the span of the internet
Yeah,
has allowed the influences to be so broad that there's no much such thing as regional. You can't listen to an artist and be like, "Oh, this person's from there," because you don't know that for a fact now. And I think that's a good thing.
I think 50 Cent started that because I'm like, he from Queens and didn't sound anything like a New Yorker. When he was
Exactly.
rapping. So,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
speaking of Queens, I know you're not
Hmm.
from Queens specifically, but since we're on the topic, I want you to
Hmm.
name your top five Queens rappers.
Whew, look at pressure. All right, now top five in what way? Lyricism.
It's on you because and I know that
It's
there's always different arguments. And
mm-hmm.
I should have said your. Oh, how about your top five favorite Queens rappers?
Queens rappers. All right, Nas number one, Prodigy two. I would say Nori for what he was when he was that guy. Yeah, because I was a big CNN fan. Trying to think. I really did. Cool G Rap, bro. Cool G Rap. Can't sleep on Cool G Rap. Number five. LL, but that's more of a like a tradition vote. You know what I mean? I
Sentimental.
left off right. I left off Run DMC. I mean, the Queen's list is long.
It is, and I'm from
As a matter of fact, I would take LL off and put Run DMC on.
yeah, I'm from the
Yeah,
Bronx, and anytime I have these discussions, like each time it's going to be different people because of
yeah,
your either your mindset or you forgot about something or your mood
of
because
course. Or you move past it.
yeah,
Exactly.
'cause, you like I said, every
Yeah, because
borough,
I
like,
left off Mike Geronimo. There's a lot of people that got left off the list.
yeah,
But Cool G is undeniable. Nas is undeniable.
yeah,
Prodigy, undeniable. Like them three, they have to be there no matter what. That's Mount Rushmore, Queens hip hop
yeah.
to me.
So I'm gonna throw it down to Miami now, and I know it's not that vast.
Whew.
You
Okay,
know,
okay. No, no, no. I could tell you the Miami Killers. All right. JT Money,
oh wow, okay,
Trick,
of course,
um, Young Pitbull, not Mr. Worldwide. Coming up Pitbull
but he was
was
doing hip hop.
yeah, yeah, lyrical monster. People
Gotcha.
don't know about that. Um, Let me see. Ross, bro. Can't sleep, can't front on Ross.
That's
And
true.
for five, For all we say, Luke, man,
I thought I was just
you
about to say, I
gotta
was like,
talk about the general. You gotta bring up the
Luke.
captain,
Yeah.
Luke. Yeah.
And speaking of Luke, how do you feel
Mhm.
about the thoughts with him saying that Florida has been ignored in the whole hip hop 50, and then Jermaine Dupri saying Atlanta's been ignored? How do you feel about that?
So everybody's gonna feel ignored because everybody wants the credit they deserve, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So everybody's gonna feel ignored. But when people think about hip hop, what they initially will always do is they'll take the conversation straight to Cool Herc, and then it becomes about the Bronx, which then makes it about Queens. Then of course you got Jay-Z and Biggie, so now it's all about New York,
New York, yeah.
right? And so people are gonna feel. I mean, listen, we can't deny Outkast. We
Mm-mm.
cannot deny Outkast. We can't deny the whole Dungeon family.
I'm
Any
about to say City
artist.
Mob. I'm like,
Exactly. You can't deny Dungeon Family. You can't deny Ludacris. You can't deny Twister from Chicago. There's people that are
yeah,
undeniable. But the problem with trying to fit something into a box is that you're gonna pick the most top of mind, the most recent. A lot of people don't know regional music, right? A lot of people don't know. If I say crucial conflict right now, a lot of people have no idea what I'm talking about, right? So what happens is to fit the 50 mold, they created a mold and it starts in New York and they know a lot of people from New York and then they gotta say Snoop because he's got the longevity thing going. But a lot of people ignore, I mean, listen, people ignore Master P. People ignore Juvie.
yeah,
Juvie, bro. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a lot of places that won't get attention, but it's not about national celebration. I think it should be more about regional celebration. And the best place that does the regional celebration, in my opinion, Texas, bro. Because
yeah. They
now you're
host a
talking
lot.
about Bun B, you're talking about cats who get love to this day when they have a
Yeah, yeah,
concert.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So everybody's gonna feel some type of way. You're not gonna get the national spotlight. It's hard to beat the Big Apple when it comes to the national spotlight.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean people didn't contribute. I mean,
But
Luke
yeah,
changed it.
he
He
definitely, right?
changed it.
Especially for independence. When it comes to independent,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. And then when you talk about independence and pushing music out the trunk, Texas revolutionized that game. Too short and them Oakland boys.
yeah.
So it's a lot of ways to look at it. A lot
But
of
I
ways to look
also,
at it.
but I also blame the corporate world because they're the ones putting the
Ooh,
money
you said the word
out there.
blame.
No, no, I have to because realistically, if we
Hmm.
had this amongst ourselves, we're going to
Hmm.
celebrate who we want to celebrate. But if you have the access to a Yankee Stadium or Madison Square
Hmm.
Garden with these corporations, they're not thinking about the people we just mentioned.
I
Not
think
because not and partly because they don't know, or they just looking at a particular list, or because they're corporations. Why should they know? They're not part of the culture like we're part of the culture.
right.
That's
So
why I say blame.
corporate is never gonna really be as ingratiated or as involved in the culture as a purist, right? It's
Yeah,
never gonna happen. They're gonna look at it, even if they try to do right by it, they're gonna do the corporate thing, which is pick the most profitable methodology, the
most popular.
safest artist, and who has the most media training. Like, I mean, if you recognize Luke at Madison Square Garden, you don't know what might happen. You know what I mean? But if it's Jay Z, he knows the playbook. So it's like they make the safe play, but that's at the surface level. Think of it like Art Basel, right? The thing
Yeah,
about Art Basel that makes it dope is you have the big shows, which are the corporate shows, but then you have all these little mini satellite shows that if you're in the know, you know about.
yeah,
And that's how we got to approach it. You take the spotlight where you could get it, and then you do the hip hop thing and turn it into your thing. You do the off Broadway show, so to speak,
yeah.
and you recognize yourself locally. We don't. I shouldn't say we don't need, but it's not necessary for corporate to recognize hip hop for hip hop to be recognized.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Which is the reason why, like I said, beyond 50 works for me because I'll be doing this next year, regardless of what day it is, because
Exactly.
part of hip hop as opposed to
Exactly.
these entities. And like I said, that's just my personal beef. And
Yeah, and it's also like at my age, I'm 45.
okay,
I don't know a world without hip hop. So
yeah,
hip hop being 50 doesn't make sense to me because to me hip hop's eternal.
yeah,
It's as long as I've been here until I leave, it'll be here. So whether it's 50 or a million, that's like saying, "Oh, we've had air since 1831." I couldn't tell you. I wasn't here before that,
yeah.
right? So contextually, trying to explain it, you can't even explain a world without hip hop to me.
Nah,
I don't know what everybody did before me. It's
Hip hop is
crazy.
a part of everything,
Exactly.
everything, even politics, even
Of
religion.
course.
You have
Of
Christian hip
course.
hop. I mean,
Of
it's like hip
course.
hop is part of everything. And I always say this: hip hop is the only genre of music that you can mix with another one, and it'll still be hip hop.
Always.
Anything else,
Always.
you have to find a name or you got to what it was.
Well, hip hop is meant to be all encompassing, right? It
Yeah,
is meant to be all encompassing. So it's like once you mix it in, join
that's
the club. That's all to it.
classical music, classical hip hop, country
Classical
music, country hip.
country hip hop.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
know. So, but
And it is what it is.
yeah. Oh, I definitely don't want to take away from your book. 'Cause like I said, we've had a great
Hmm.
discussion, and I know
Hmm.
everything's about hip hop. Let the people know exactly where they can pick up the book, your
Okay.
website.
So the book's available right now on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, the Book Baby Bookstore. It's also available on my personal website, gcbtb.com, which is gcodebehindthebars.com. Um, it's soon to be available on Audible, soon to be available um, in your different ebook formats. It's available, man. It's out there. Just search; it'll pop right up.
Cool, good. And outside of, I mean, I know you don't have anything outside of what you just discussed, but are
Hmm.
there any plans for you to do anything pertaining to the book? Actually, is there going to be a follow up book? Because I know it's sometimes with authors,
So
years, it might be months. I don't know.
So there's been pressure, man. Like, so as soon as I got done with the book, everybody's like, when's the next book? And I'm like, listen, what are you talking about? Like, there's one book, there will be no book two. But what I realize is, you know how Jay-Z sampled that Nas line. Sometimes the rap game remind me of that. It's the same thing. When Nas released Illmatic, he was on some like, nah, this is all I got for you. And then a couple years later,
Even though
right? Here's the thing, as long as it comes from a pure place and as long as I think I have something worthy to share, yeah, there's a possibility of another book.
yeah.
But I'm not going to say there'll be another book in 6 months, right? It took my whole life to get this first one.
I was about to say,
So,
especially with books, it's not like,
right,
you have 7, 10, 15, 20 years. So it's not just like,
exactly.
it's like a record where it's like, if you don't release it in 82, then 83, it
It's
doesn't matter. So,
exactly. And that's the cool thing about a book, right? It's timeless.
yeah,
So the
especially if it's
goal
written
is
correctly.
exactly. So the goal is yes, there'll be more. I will write more. When? Who knows?
Time will
But time will tell. Time will tell. And speaking of, when we talk about the format of the book, that's another big thing for me because I looked at it like the people I need to read this book are people who listen to music more than read, right? So the way the book is constructed, first of all, right now your average song is about 2 minutes, 30 seconds. So
yeah,
every chapter is intentionally about 2 minutes and 30 seconds of reading, right? Then I recorded the audio and I embedded it in the book. Meaning, when you open the book and go through the pages, you can scan the bottom left corner and it'll take you to a website where you could hear me read the book to you if you don't feel like reading.
yeah, that's hot. I'm gonna have to
And
look.
it's also not meant to be read cover to cover, right? Because the moment I tell somebody read something cover to cover, it becomes homework. Nobody wants to do homework. It's just like listen to chapter one,
Sure.
right? And when you're done with chapter one, in the back of the book, there's actually a workbook. It's like a journal. You just write down how you feel about it, how these things apply to you. And you do that for every chapter. It's a total of 13 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. You do it for every chapter. When it's done and you've completed the process, however long that takes you, then you go back and read the book cover to cover. Because now you read it with my thoughts and opinions, but you also read it with your thoughts on my thoughts to give you a complete experience. So it's really formatted in a hip hop sense. It's kind of like, back in the day, they used to leave like 16s at the end of the song
Yeah.
so you can write your verse. It's
Yep.
exactly what it is. It's like it's an individual manual, and I want each person to add and enrich their experience by inserting their personal views. So everybody's book is going to be different when they're done. You know,
I have a question. I don't mean to throw you off when I ask this question.
shoot.
What about the people that don't care about corporate America, but love hip hop?
Oh, so it's for them too. Because here's the thing. This is how I applied it to corporate America, right? The workbook in the back is how you're gonna apply it to what you do.
Yeah. Okay.
right? And one of the biggest divides is this: a lot of people look at corporate America it's like, I don't want to be corporate. I can't live in a cubicle. That they say all this stuff, but if you're not corporate, you're entrepreneurial. If you're not entrepreneurial, you're artistic. All I'm telling you is whatever you do, if you diagnose and listen to the music, the instructions on how to be successful, it's in there, right? When you listen to 444 Jigga's album and he breaks down the whole Dumbo situation in New York,
Yeah.
he's like, I could have had a house in Dumbo, Dumbo. Like a lot of people are like, oh, that rhyme is fire. Listen to what the man's saying. Scout the real estate game. Be ahead of the game. The lessons there, right? One of my favorite J. Cole quotes. The good news, brother, you came a long way. Bad news, brother, you went the wrong way. I quoted that when I wrote the chapter called Reading is Not Fundamental. And it's because you worried about people who don't want to be corporate. I'm worried about people who don't want to read, right? Because one of my friends asked me straight up, who's going to buy a book? It's 2023. And I'm like, listen, bro, it's not about buying the book. It's about falling in love with access and information that can help you be a better person. And fortunately for us, you got YouTube, you got TikTok, you got all these channels that you can now utilize to learn. You don't have to read. Hell, you don't even have to be literate to learn now, right? So the chapter's called Reading Ain't That Fundamental because it's about absorbing information. How you get the information is fine with me, but I want to encourage people. So maybe in that chapter, it'll hit somebody and they'll be like, okay, maybe I should listen to this book, right? And each segment is broken up. And I know eventually somebody gonna bootleg it. It's gonna be all over the internet, and I'm cool with that too, because that's the intent. I didn't write this to make money. I wrote this to be, my contribution.
Yeah.
you know, and hopefully you get to the right people at the perfect time. And in that moment, they'll be ready to receive and it'll make a difference. And then they'll write their version of the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time. Is there any last words or anything else you'd like to tell the people that
I think it's important that we realize that everything is a learning opportunity, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Sometimes we don't listen to people because they're like, oh, what can you teach me? That was another thing, too. It's like when I was 16, 17, I'm not listening to no teacher. I'm not listening to anybody who I considered broke. So it's like one of the big draws of the corporate world is I looked at my mentors and I looked at the houses they live in and the cars they drove, and I'm like, I might want to listen to you
I
though,
might listen? Yeah,
because you know how to play this game the right way.
might
So
be
I
a
would just
listen.
say, yeah. So my thing is, pay attention. Pay attention to everything. Realize there's a lesson in all of life experiences, and then from time to time, take a pause, reflect, write down what you're feeling, and realize that you could pass those lessons on to other people. And that's really the premise of the book, man. It's the G code,
The G code.
broken down so everybody could get it.
Once again, definitely appreciate Mr. Ingram, Lamar Ingram, the G code behind the bars, hip hop connoisseur's guide through corporate America. Any book outlet? Well, the
Any
major
book
ones I
outlet,
should say.
any
Yeah,
any book outlet. If they don't have it, they will have it soon. Trust. Any book
yeah,
outlet, just Google it. We out there. All right.
definitely.
Thanks a lot for having me, bro.
No problem, man. I appreciate it. And good luck with everything. And I look forward to the next one, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 years, 20 years, unless the Lord
Absolutely.
has different plans for me, I look forward to, the next one.
I
Good luck
appreciate that.
with everything. And I know you got a good ear, with the sound design. So I know you got your advantage. So
Absolutely.
once again, Big Said, the industry code signing off till the next time. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time. Peace.
Till next time.